Most gardeners lose an entire growing season before it even starts, not because they planted the wrong vegetables, but because they waited too long to plant the right ones. January quietly decides who harvests early, who harvests more, and who spends the rest of the year trying to catch up. While most gardens sit empty, the smartest growers are already building stronger roots, fewer problems, and heavier harvests without doing anything extra. If you think January is too early to plant, that belief alone is probably why your garden struggles later in the year. Cold soil doesn't stop the right vegetables. It strengthens them. It trains them to grow deeper roots, resist stress, and outperform crops planted months later. The difference between average harvests and impressive ones often comes down to what you planted when everyone else was waiting. Welcome back to Daily Plant Life. Today, I'm showing you 12 vegetables you should plant in January, starting with the ones most people overlook and ending with the ones that quietly change your entire growing season. These aren't guesses, trends, or internet gardening myths. These are vegetables that use January to their advantage, and once you understand why they work, you'll never see early planting the same way again. Plant number 1 is garlic, and garlic is one of the clearest examples of why January planting works so well. Garlic does not measure success by how fast its leaves grow, but by how much energy it stores underground. When you plant garlic cloves in January, very little appears to happen at first, and this often worries beginners. But beneath the soil, garlic is doing exactly what it needs to do, sending roots deeper, anchoring itself firmly, and preparing the internal structure that will later determine bulb size. Cold soil plays a critical role in garlic development. It signals the plant to begin a natural process that encourages clove separation and bulb formation later in the season. Without this exposure to cool temperatures, garlic often stays small, forming weak bulbs even if the leaves look healthy. January planting provides this cold exposure naturally, without extra effort or artificial treatment. The plant understands the environment and responds by preparing itself properly. Garlic is also one of the most forgiving crops to care for during this time. Once planted, it requires minimal intervention. It does not need constant feeding, and it does not suffer if growth seems slow above ground. As spring approaches and temperatures rise, garlic planted in January responds immediately, growing rapidly from the strength it built earlier. This results in larger bulbs, stronger plants, and a harvest that feels effortless compared to garlic planted later. Plant number 2 is onions, particularly bulb onions grown from seeds or sets, and January is one of the most important months for determining their final size. Onions don't decide to grow large bulbs at the end of the season. That decision is made early, based on how well the plant establishes itself. When onions are planted in January, the cool conditions encourage the plant to focus on root development rather than rushing leaf growth. This slow start allows onions to build thick stems and strong root systems capable of supporting large bulbs later on. Onions planted too late often grow tall and leafy, but fail to form impressive bulbs because their foundation was never strong enough. January planting slows the entire process down in a controlled way, allowing the plant to mature naturally instead of reacting to sudden changes in temperature and daylight. Another major benefit of January planted onions is reduced stress. Cooler temperatures mean steady growth without sharp fluctuations. Pests that typically attack onion foliage are far less active, giving plants time to grow undisturbed. By the time longer days arrive, these onions are already established, stable, and ready to convert sunlight into bulb growth efficiently. Plant number 3 is spinach, a vegetable that truly shines when planted in January. Spinach is naturally adapted to cool weather, and when grown in mild conditions, it produces leaves that are thicker, darker, and far more flavorful than spinach grown in heat. January planting allows spinach to grow slowly, focusing on leaf quality rather than speed. Cold temperatures trigger spinach to increase sugar production in its leaves, which is why cool-grown spinach tastes sweeter and less bitter. This slow, steady growth also strengthens leaf structure, making the plant more resilient to temperature swings later on. Instead of bolting at the first sign of warmth, January-planted spinach holds on longer, giving you an extended harvest window. Spinach is also incredibly efficient in the garden. Once established, it can be harvested continuously by removing outer leaves while allowing the center to keep growing. With consistent moisture and decent soil, spinach planted in January can provide fresh harvests for weeks, often becoming one of the earliest and most reliable crops of the year. Plant number 4 is carrots, and carrots reward patience better than almost any other vegetable. January planting allows carrot seeds to germinate slowly, which is critical for proper root formation. When carrots are rushed in warm soil, they often grow unevenly, resulting in forked, cracked, or misshapen roots. Cool soil encourages carrot plants to focus on steady downward growth rather than rapid leaf production. This controlled growth allows the roots to develop smoothly and uniformly. At the same time, exposure to cool temperatures causes carrots to store sugars as a natural survival response, dramatically improving flavor and crunch. The most important factor for January carrots is soil preparation. Loose, well-drained soil without stones or hard clumps allows roots to grow freely. Once established, carrots are surprisingly low maintenance. They grow quietly beneath the surface, slowly building size and sweetness until harvest, often outperforming carrots planted later in the season. Plant number 5 is lettuce, and lettuce is one of those vegetables that completely changes personality depending on when it's planted. When grown in heat, lettuce rushes, turns bitter, and bolts before you can enjoy it. But when planted in January, lettuce grows the way it was meant to grow, slowly, calmly, and with purpose. The cool air and soil temperatures tell the plant there is no need to panic, no reason to race towards seed production, and that simple message alone is what creates tender, flavorful leaves. January planted lettuce focuses on forming compact, well-structured heads or dense leaf clusters, depending on the variety. Instead of stretching upward quickly, it builds leaf layers gradually, resulting in better texture and improved moisture retention. This is why cool-grown lettuce feels crisp rather than limp and tastes clean rather than sharp. Each leaf develops fully before the next one emerges, which extends the harvest period and reduces waste. Another major advantage of planting lettuce in January is control. With fewer pests active and slower growth overall, you can harvest selectively, removing outer leaves as needed without stressing the plant. With consistent moisture and light feeding, lettuce planted now can produce steadily for weeks, giving you reliable harvests long before warm season crops even get started. Plant number 6 is cabbage, a vegetable that rewards patience and penalizes rushing. Cabbage planted in January uses the cool conditions to build thick stems and wide root systems before it ever thinks about forming a head. This early strength determines how firm, dense, and heavy the final cabbage will be. When cabbage is planted too late, it often grows quickly but lacks the internal structure needed to form solid heads. Cool temperatures allow cabbage to grow steadily without stress, which improves both texture and flavor. Heads develop slowly, layering tightly from the inside out, resulting in cabbages that are less likely to split and more likely to store well after harvest. January planting also reduces the risk of pest damage during the most vulnerable early stages of growth. Cabbage care during this time is mostly about consistency rather than intervention. Steady moisture, adequate spacing, and patience are far more important than frequent feeding. Once spring arrives, January-planted cabbage responds immediately, using its established root system to support rapid, healthy head formation. Plant number 7 is broccoli, another vegetable that performs best when given a cool, stress-free start. When broccoli is planted in January, it focuses on building a strong central stem before producing its main head. This structural development is what determines head size and quality later in the season. Broccoli planted too late often bolts prematurely, producing small or loose heads. Cool conditions also improve broccoli's timing. Flowering occurs more predictably, and the plant is less likely to be shocked into early blooming by temperature swings. This results in larger main heads and more productive side shoots after the initial harvest, extending the harvest window significantly. Broccoli planted in January benefits from steady watering and nutrient-rich soil, but it doesn't require constant attention. Because it establishes early, it handles minor stress far better than late-planted broccoli. This resilience translates into consistent yields and better overall plant health. Plant number 8 is peas, especially garden peas and snow peas, and January is one of the best times to plant them for maximum productivity. Peas thrive in cool weather, and early planting allows them to grow vines and establish climbing habits before heat becomes a problem. This early development directly affects how many flowers and pods the plant produces later. When peas are planted too late, rising temperatures interfere with flowering, often causing flowers to drop before forming pods. January planting avoids this entirely. The plants flower under ideal conditions, leading to better pollination and heavier pod sets. The result is sweeter peas and longer harvest periods. Once established, peas are relatively low maintenance. Providing support early allows the vines to grow upward efficiently, improving airflow and sunlight exposure. With consistent moisture and mild temperatures, peas planted in January produce abundantly without demanding much effort. Plant number 9 is radishes, one of the fastest and most satisfying crops to grow during this time. Radishes planted in January grow evenly and predictably, without the heat stress that causes them to become hollow or overly spicy. Cool soil allows the roots to develop dense, crisp texture instead of spongy flesh. January radishes also mature more consistently. Instead of uneven sizing, you get uniform roots that are easier to harvest and use. Because they grow quickly, radishes can be planted between slower-growing crops, making efficient use of garden space during early months. Radishes require very little care beyond moisture and timely harvesting. When grown in cool conditions, they reach peak quality quickly and reliably, making them perfect for gardeners who want fast results while waiting for longer season crops. Plant number 10 is beets, a vegetable that thrives when growth is slow and steady. January planting allows beets to form smooth, round roots without stress. Cool temperatures encourage balanced growth between roots and leaves, preventing woody texture and uneven sizing. Beets grown in cool conditions develop higher sugar content, resulting in sweeter flavor and improved texture. Both the roots and the greens benefit from January planting, giving you 2 harvests from one plant. The greens grow tender and flavorful, while the roots mature gradually underground. Once established, beets are forgiving and resilient. They tolerate light cold well and require minimal maintenance beyond consistent moisture. January planted beets often outperform those planted later, producing higher quality harvests with less effort. Plant number 11 is turnips, grown for both roots and greens, and January planting brings out the best in both. Turnips prefer cool soil, and early planting allows the roots to develop evenly without becoming tough or woody. Slow growth improves texture and enhances natural sweetness. When turnips grow too quickly, especially in warm soil, the roots often become hollow or overly strong in flavor. January planting avoids this by encouraging gradual development. At the same time, the greens grow tender and flavorful, providing an additional harvest before the roots are fully mature. Turnips are efficient, fast-growing, and forgiving. Once established, they require minimal care beyond moisture and occasional harvesting. January planted turnips mature predictably and store better after harvest. Plant number 12 is mustard greens, a fast-growing leafy vegetable that benefits enormously from cool conditions. When planted in January, mustard greens grow slower and milder, producing leaves with less bitterness and better texture. This controlled growth allows the plant to remain productive longer before becoming overly strong in flavor. Cool weather reduces stress and encourages steady leaf formation. Instead of bolting quickly, mustard greens planted in January maintain vegetative growth, allowing for multiple harvests over time. Each harvest stimulates new leaves, extending the productive window significantly. Mustard greens are easy to grow and require little intervention. With consistent moisture, they thrive in cool conditions and provide dependable harvests during a time when many vegetables struggle. If you've ever felt like January was a month to wait rather than plant, I hope this video completely shifts that perspective. Gardening success isn't about forcing growth or chasing speed. It's about understanding timing and working with the natural rhythm of plants. These 12 vegetables prove that cool beginnings often lead to the strongest finishes. If you found this video helpful, take a moment to like it, subscribe to Daily Plant Life, and share in the comments which vegetables you're planting this January. Your garden doesn't have to sleep just because the weather is cool. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep your garden working for you.